Welcome everybody back to the Flesh and Blood and Bone podcast. My name is Kyra Gardner and I'm here with my dad, Tony Gardner.
And I am Tony Gardner.
That is Tony Gardner, and we are happy to be bringing you season 2 of our podcast. Technically, we wrapped up at the end of last year and then we took a bit of a hiatus because we are now partnered with Fangoria. So this is our first episode with them, and it's kind of full circle because I've seen my dad in a lot of Fangoria magazines. My grandma has kept almost like every magazine that my dad was in Fangoria, like from the 80s till now. So being able to work with Fangoria on this podcast is a really cool full circle moment for me, and I'm sure for you.
Completely for me, because Fangoria is the only thing that we had going in Ohio back in the 70s to be able to see what was happening in movies. And there was nothing else genre other than this. And they always did such a good job. So it's really nice to be able to be involved with them on this and see them now branching back out into making movies and all the other things that they want to do. I'm really excited for them.
Aw. We wrapped up the last of our last season with the 1988 Blob. If you haven't seen that episode, you can go back and watch it. And that kind of wrapped up the 80s portion of my dad's career. And now we are into the 90s, starting off with Darkman. For those of you who are not watching and just listening to the audio, I am dressed up as Liam Neeson's character in that movie, which my dad did. But the cheap version, because I did not want to paint my full face, so I just wrapped half of it in gauze.
So, it looks good.
So you wrapped the Blob, and then basically you turned right around and started working on Darkman?
Yeah, we wrapped the Blob. Your mom and I went and got married and recovered from the Blob because we were both on that together. We had the holidays, and then we got into Darkman, the beginning of 89, I guess, somewhere in there. It started out with just Sam wanted to have us do some designs because he had some designs done prior to that point.
Of Liam's character?
Yeah, and he said they were all a little too ooey gooey burned, and he wanted to see what I might come up with because I was kind of into the dried out kind of vibe instead, a more zombie-ish in a way. I did a bust, and Chet Zar did some colored pencil drawings, and that was all we had to work with at the time. And we took that into a meeting. Sam really liked the crispy
cream,
the crispy burn look as opposed to the ooey burn look.
That's cool. And he had seen how did Sam discover you?
I had met Sam working at Doug Beswick's studio, and we did some stuff for Evil Dead 2. We did a giant monster head that came in a door, filled a doorway, and a giant tree branch that grabbed Bruce Campbell's character and tried to feed Bruce into the face coming in the door.
Oh my gosh.
We did a stop motion sequence. Well, Doug did all the stop motion. Steve Wang sculpted a beautiful puppet, and Jim Belhovic did an amazing miniature set and filmed all that in his place. Then we went to location with the tree branch and the head. And there were a couple other effects, like faces came out of the side of the head that were humans, and there was a Bruce Campbell puppet head. I went with all that stuff to set, got to know Sam there for like a week or two. And that was really it. But we hit it off, and he liked my aesthetic. I was kind of into the whole idea of the burn guy being crispy burned. Right. Like barbecued chicken as opposed to
freshly burned.
Like a human bloody
popsicle,
lumpy burn. So I was trying to think of something more dynamic, and I kept imagining Bruce Campbell as Darkman.
Oh, really?
Having all the angles of his face play into the whole being gaunt and all that. So when I did my sculpture, I based it kind of on Bruce. And Sam also said he wanted Darkman to look kind of like the poster for Evil Dead 2. Which was a skull that just had human eyeballs in it.
Oh, right.
And the rest was all skull. And it's like, all right, well, it has to talk and do stuff and be a person. So where do you find the balance and all that? So I sculpted like this really quick bust in like a day or so. And then Chet Zar did a couple colored pencil sketches. I presented all that stuff to Sam, and he really liked that direction and asked us to flesh it out some more.
Interesting.
And then that just led to us being asked to do the film.
Real quick, if you have not seen Darkman, you can go watch it, or if you would like to listen to a recap that I will tell right now, you can do that. If not, you can fast forward to a certain part that I will tell you right now in voiceover. To skip the recap, go to about 9 minutes into the podcast. Sam Raimi's 1990 film Darkman follows Dr. Peyton Westlake, played by Liam Neeson, who works in his lab developing synthetic skin for graphing. His girlfriend Julie, played by Frances McDormand, is an attorney who discovers a memorandum that she wasn't supposed to concerning a developer, Louis Strack, who is bribing a zoning commission. Julie has to leave to confront him, and Peyton awkwardly asks her to marry him while she's on the way to her cab. She says she'll think about it and heads off. When Julie gets to Strack's office, he confesses to the bribery but warns her that crime boss Robert Durant is also after the memo that she possesses. Julie mistakenly mentions that she doesn't have the memo on her, leading Durant to search for it at Peyton's lab. Peyton's confronted by Durant and his gang of ruthless thugs, clueless of the document that they want. So ruthless, they kill Peyton's lab partner and torture Peyton into speaking by burning his hands and pushing his head into a vat of acid. Durant and his crew rig the entire place to blow up just as Julie arrives outside. Julie doesn't know it, but Peyton actually survives the blast since he was shot into the nearby river. He wakes up at a nearby hospital where the head nurse informs those working under her that Peyton's nerves were affected in the blast. He has no sense of physical pain, has enhanced strength, and a side effect that causes him to have a larger temper. Peyton manages to free himself and escape the hospital out into the rainy cold. He manages to spot Julie on the street and runs to her, but she's frightened of his completely bandaged body and face and runs away. Peyton goes into hiding and rebuilds pieces of his lab that he can salvage. He uses an old photograph of himself to digitize and create a new mask of his original face. He begins plotting against the men who turned him into this monster. Meanwhile, Julie attends Strack's fancy ball and he sort of hits on her. Peyton hides in the vents and sees the two dancing together, igniting his uncontrollable rage. He spots one of Durant's henchmen, Ricky, played by Ted Raimi, and holds his head through oncoming traffic to rat out who else was involved in his attack before killing him. Back at the lab, Peyton creates a face mask for one of the other henchmen and gets him killed off before his mask disintegrates at 99 minutes. Knowing that the process somewhat works, he goes to find Julie at the graveyard as himself. Naturally, she freaks out until Peyton is able to tell her he was in a coma this whole time, not dead. Peyton doesn't mention his disfigurement and cuts their time short on account of the mask not holding for too long. Next, he creates a mask of Durant and causes chaos and confusion within his henchmen before having to run out again at the 99-minute mark. He then goes on a date with Julie at a carnival but is triggered by seeing other people referred to as freaks. He loses his temper on a sketchy carnival worker and wins her a stuffed elephant, telling her to
thank the fucking elephant
before running away. Julie now knows something's wrong and follows Peyton back to the lab. There, she is kidnapped by Durant while his crew infiltrates the lab to whack Peyton for real this time, under the orders of Strack, who has been working with them this whole time. Unfortunately for them, Peyton is pissed, and one by one, they are killed off. Durant escapes in a helicopter, and Peyton is in hot pursuit, dangling from a cable wire by which he manages to get the helicopter to crash, killing Durant. Peyton disguises himself as Durant and meets Strack and a hostage Julie at an unfinished building structure. Strack reveals he knows it's Peyton, leading him to take off his mask and reveal his fully burned face to him and Julie. The two men battle it out, with of course Julie being in danger in the middle of the fight. Peyton manages to get the upper hand and holds Strack over the side of the building by his ankles. Peyton's morals are put into question on who he has become. He knows who he is now and decides to drop Strack off the side of the building. While on their way down the elevator, Julie tells Peyton that things can go back to the way they were before, but Peyton tells her he's changed. And then we get this beautiful ending where he rushes away from Julie as he puts on a new mask and into a crowd. Julie yells for him, not knowing which person he's become now, and we end with a lovely cameo of Bruce Campbell as the disguised Darkman. Amazing. And we're back. Okay, so that's the plot of Darkman. We will just kind of go chronologically through what my dad did throughout the movie. Well, first off, actually, Danny Elfman does the score.
Yes, Danny Elfman does the score, which was really pretty awesome. He also came to set and
You met him?
threw a bucket of water at Liam for one shot. He happened to be visiting on the day where Liam's come back from the hospital and he's going down the street and he sees Julie and it's raining and a car drives by and the water splashes him in the face.
That's Danny Elfman?
That's Danny Elfman with a bucket going into Liam's face.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
It's a big bucket.
Yeah, there's a lot of water in that splash.
And now, what were you in charge of specifically? Just Liam Neeson's look or other gags?
Anything that had to do with the scanning machine and melted skin and reconstituting skin and masks and heads and hands.
Bladders?
Yeah, all the bladder stuff, all the stuff where Liam's face is breaking down, and then the full stage Darkman makeup. We did a progressive makeup when he gets the acid burn, and then there's the explosion as well. So there was a lot of stuff in it, to be honest, but it was all based on anything that was a human being. Even when Liam's character is trying to reconstitute the image of his head, all he has is one photograph, and it's like half messed up. So he feeds it into this machine, and it reconstitutes a head of Liam that's like rotating, and it's slowly putting the pieces back together and rebuilding it. We did a makeup on Liam that was basically like minus sections of his face, but we tried to do it sort of cubist style.
Oh my God.
And then we put the makeup on Liam and tried to comb his hair and everything like perfect. And then sat him in a chair on a turntable and spun him around in front of the camera. And that became the digital image of his head rotating, because nothing like that existed.
I didn't even think about that.
You take it for granted because that's such a normal thing now.
I literally can't fathom how you did that.
But that's Liam trying not to blink, sitting in a chair, being spun around slowly.
Holding a facial expression.
Yeah, and then they, on top of that, added like little things popping on, like it's like the pixels, reconstituting his anatomy essentially.
Oh wow! When you spun him around? Was it in front of a green screen? Did
that
exist?
Just in front of black.
Okay, yeah.
And then they just clumped him in.
Right, because you can also do that.
But then we made like fake hands, and then there was this cool pin press machine. We'd cast hands of different people, different characters in the show. This one guy, Paulie, his hand I think is the first that gets made. A lot of the materials that exist now, like silicone and all that, didn't exist. So it's like the hand is vinyl. When it's actually revealed, it's a rigid urethane prop. You couldn't put it on as a glove. We had something else to put on.
Silicone didn't exist?
Yeah, it didn't exist in the makeup industry at the time. Everything was foam latex.
Ew.
So.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Ew.
Yeah.
I say that as a girly who has grown up with my dad being an SFX artist. I was bougie and learned prosthetics on silicone prosthetics, and that's the more expensive kind. But anybody who's been in the business obviously starts with foam, and I don't understand it. I don't get it. I don't like it.
It's opaque is the problem. It's like.
It's spongy.
Yeah, it's spongy. You can sweat through it, which is great, but it's an opaque flat surface, so you're trying to paint it to look translucent.
And it absorbs the paint.
Yeah, and it absorbs light differently too. The nice thing with silicone and urethane is that it's like painting a latex mask. There's a certain level of opacity that you have to deal with.
What was your budget on this?
I don't know. I'd have to look it up, to be honest. It's been
Did you feel
quite a while.
Oh, I could make do with this money, or do you feel like it was stressful? Well, it's always stressful, but
it's always stressful. But I mean, the truth of the matter is I had never done an overlapping prosthetic makeup on somebody before. So,
really? This is your first time doing
that? So I kind of was like telling Sam, I know what I'm doing. I can do it.
You lied.
Because I could do simple 1 or 2 piece things.
Oh, I see. But this is multiple parts.
And they all had to overlap and integrate together and blend together.
Oh, well, I think
not look like it's like a giant Mr. Potato Head kind of thing. Because I'm trying to make him look like meat's been taken away as opposed to adding to him.
It looks good. I didn't know it was I just thought it was one giant fat prosthetics.
No.
Whoa. How long did... Well, I'll ask you that later. This beginning part where they're in the lab... And it's a fake nose? Is that you?
Yeah, we did the fake nose, and then we made another one that we put little bladders in that we could look like it's disintegrating.
Yeah. Was that a time lapse, or was it like wax and you melted it?
It's sped up a little bit, but it's melted gelatin. So when he's cutting into it, it's just this gelatin nose. But then we made another one that had air pockets in it that we could put bladders in. And then if they wanted to see it bubbling, and then when you cut to it and you see it melting in the tray, the table that it's on is actually a heating element.
I knew it.
And it's in a glass dish, so it's literally just a melting gelatin nose. And
but they sped it up a little bit.
I think they sped it up a bit because it's a slow
process.
start. Yeah.
the next main thing we get after this little gelatin nose is when he gets tortured, which is actually crazy. They put his head in like a vat of, is it acid or like, no, it is?
Yeah.
Okay. And when he goes to grab it, his hands start to melt.
Yeah, his hands come and land on these electrical out, like positive and negative. So he's basically being electrocuted, and there's these hands that were done by a different company, and it's stop motion.
Oh, it's stop motion.
They did a stop motion hand, and then they did another one that sort of melted, and it was sort of in Sam Raimi style, back to Evil Dead kind of stuff. The idea was at times there were going to be skeletal hands of Liam
throughout the movie
that were stop motion doing specific things. And then sometimes we had animatronic skeletal hands that could do things in the same shot as Liam. And then we also had gloves that he could wear. And then we also made prosthetics that Deborah Larson, the makeup effects department head, she was very petite and had very thin hands. We did these hands over top of hers that looked like skeletons that were prosthetics, so we could make them super thin. And then we wrapped her hand in gauze. So when Liam's unwrapping his hand, sometimes it's Deborah's hands.
Actually, for real?
Yeah, and sometimes it's the prop hands when it's punching somebody, like when it punches Dan Bell, who plays Smiley. It's a prop one so that we can make the wrists really skinny. We had articulated ones that were on the ends of rods.
I wish we had more skeleton hands. That would have been cool if just one was straight, like he just had straight up skeleton hands.
Yeah, that was the hope that we could use that more.
But that's pretty complicated, especially for the time.
And unfortunately, Liam's hands are very big and strong. So to wrap those in gauze, they got pretty beefy looking. And then to do a glove of a skeleton hand over Liam's hand.
Oh my God,
and then put gauze on that.
So funny.
It gets pretty big. It's not quite an oven mitt, but it
looks like Wreck-It Ralph kind of.
It was always trying to like be able to do an insert wherever we could to try and scale the hands back down.
That makes sense. I forgot how much they actually like torture him. These guys are assholes.
Yeah.
That's insane. They're like, here you go. Here's a vat of acid. Just kidding. You're going back in the acid. And then also on top of it, we're going to blow you up.
Right. Oh, yeah. We were trying to like justify the wounding of his face. Like only one side of his face goes all the way into the acid so that we could still leave some skin on the other side, stuff like that. And then when he goes underneath, I originally wanted him to have safety goggles on to protect his skin in that area, to justify
his eyes.
Because,
you wouldn't have your eye, really, would you?
Right. There's a bit of Hollywood fun taking place with that, but we still tried to at least make it look sourcey as far as like one side of the face being worse than the other. And
so that's kind of how the like shape of it came about. I see. I like the safety goggle idea. It would have been cool because then wouldn't it have burned into his skin and it kind of melted? So
it would have maybe made an outline or something. We were playing around with the idea of maybe the goggles had like some sort of product name on it and that would be branded into his skin. I mean, we messed around with a lot of fun little things.
But no.
It just, it didn't make sense.
No.
And dramatically for him to have goggles on the whole time, it just
probably looks silly.
It would have been goofy, yeah.
It would have been looked like the Minions.
So Sam very wisely vetoed some of our ideas.
Smart. Where did you guys shoot this? In LA?
We shot it in downtown LA. There was this building that was being demolished or going to be demolished. That was this rundown factory. They just did an amazing job like setting it up. Like he'd built a lab inside this place that was already a bit dingy. And then after the explosion, they just utilized it as is.
Did they actually blow it up?
No. They took out the
nice stuff.
Yeah.
But that's a real explosion. I mean, Sam does real explosions.
Yeah.
So you did blow up something.
Well, I think there's a miniature that blows up when she comes back and the building explodes. So if you pay attention when he goes when Liam's trying to like stop the explosion from happening, you can see one side is acid burn, but both hands are very skeletal.
Oh.
And then the explosion, there was, I believe, a miniature, and then there was a stunt double for him that fell into the water. We had to do like a stunt mask, and that was actually a one-piece foam pullover.
Oh.
It had the bandages the fresh burn look didn't have bandages on it, but when that same stunt guy doubled Liam for other stuff on the rooftop, all the bandages were pre-glued on it. So he essentially had like a slip-on mask, even though it was foam. And the idea with it being foam was we could still seal it and make it fireproof. If he moved his jaw, we could get some jaw movement out of it so that it wasn't
totally rigid.
Yeah, it wasn't just a mask. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to say, when the explosion happens and it's the shot of him, the body coming to camera, it's kind of funny.
Yeah, I think that's the miniature. I'm not sure who did the
It's
miniatures.
a miniature body, that body?
Yeah.
Oh. Is that similar to like when you did Hocus Pocus, when they had those puppet witches for like wides, like miniatures?
Yeah, Rick Lazarini's little puppets.
Yeah, is that a similar
They were all
puppet to
rod
this?
puppets and yeah.
Okay, well, I'll put that behind the scenes in the video so people can know what we're talking about. But I see. Okay, and so then he falls into the water, the stunt guy, Frances McDormand, which, by the way, I didn't even know that was Frances McDormand until like a year ago, because she's so young, and I've only seen her in things where she's a bit older, so that was funny. There's this shot in the movie that is crazy where she's looking at the exploding building, and then the background starts to change to the funeral setting, and then she starts to be in her funeral attire.
Yeah.
At the time, did that just like blow people's minds?
Yeah, they were really curious as to how that transition happened.
Do you know, I mean, obviously that wasn't part of your stuff, but like, is that a choice because so it could feel more comic booky, or?
I think Sam just really always had really great ideas for transitions and was willing to experiment. And part of this, the inspiration for Darkman was The Shadow.
Is that a comic book?
Yeah.
Oh, I totally knew that.
From like way back, decades ago. And Sam wanted to do sort of like a superhero vibed character in a comic book style, and Darkman sort of came out of the meetings for that other project. And then a lot of the transitions are definitely
comic booky.
Yeah,
it's
very cool.
It's a cool aesthetic.
And he had her in front of a green screen, and he had her do it in one outfit, and she moves her hands, and then he filmed her doing the same movement again, but they threw the funeral wardrobe over top of the other wardrobe while she was still standing there.
Oh.
And finished the rest of the action that way. So he was messing around with different ideas. And
it's very like seamless for that time.
Yeah.
Like especially the outfit change. It's very similar to like that shot in The Craft where her face changes. You're like, how did they do that for the time period that it was? It's crazy. Now we get to him in the streets all rainy. So he just grabs a jacket out of the dumpster.
Sam was trying to justify that theatrical costume, the whole idea of the Phantom and the hat and the old jacket that has the short cape on the back. So it was an alley behind a theater company, and there's a lot of, if you pay attention, there's a lot of other wardrobe, like theater wardrobe and props in the dumpster, and that's where he finds the big coat.
What? I didn't clock that because it's all this one.
The way it's edited, I don't know how much of it you can actually see.
Yeah.
But and then that bodysuit that he's wearing, we built a whole bodysuit for him on stretch-based spandex that had all the bandages pre-attached to it.
Oh, right. Because the idea is that they were the bandages he came out of the hospital in, and now they're just like loose and wet and gross now. Yeah,
the idea was trying to come up with something that would hold together so that it could take rain and action and all that and be a superhero costume, but not
so much in your face.
Yeah.
Where did you shoot the street scene? In downtown?
That was downtown.
That is a lot of rain. Was there just like crazy rain rigs everywhere?
Yeah. No, it was really impressive. It was really cool.
It's super thick.
And it was freezing when we were in the alley. Liam was shivering so bad.
Really?
Yeah, it was he's wet and cold, and it's night, and
he's got to do that a bunch. He's just got to stay wet. Yeah, especially this
scene was the worst.
With him under the cardboard box that gets just whipped away. He's just getting doused in buckets, gallons of water.
And he's lying in it too. So.
Yeah. They didn't have a stunt double for the wide?
No.
Oh.
Liam did all of it.
Wow, what a trooper.
Well, he was amazing.
Yeah, how was it like working with Liam Neeson?
He was great. I mean, the first time we did the test makeup, we were still trying to figure out what we were doing. It was probably about 8 hours of us experimenting on him.
His face.
Yeah, and trying different things, and then trying wounds on top of that, and how do we ground it? And at a certain point, he's like, this is a lot to take in as an actor. So if you could just let me have some time in front of a mirror to figure out how to move it, that would help me as well. So in full makeup, we left him alone for a while so he could figure out how much he had to act through all that stuff or overact so that it would read through it. And we all got a lot out of that day, and we reassured him that the next time we do it, it won't be 8 hours. But I think the next time we did it, it was like almost 5.
Still not 8, so.
And then the next time we did it, prior to filming, it was 3 hours.
You guys got that down good.
Yeah, and then we had it so that it was, I think, about 2.5 hours. And then we realized that there's a lot of times in the movie where his hands are covered and his head is covered, and you're only seeing this area. And then once the stuff around his mouth wears away, there's still complete coverage, and it's just this area and the mouth. So we had this version of his makeup that was literally just like a Lone Ranger mask.
Oh, cool.
That was just this section, and that was pre-painted, and we put that down in like less than half an hour.
Oh, that's great.
And then we just put the bandage hood over top of that, and it Velcroed up the back. And then there was a strip of bandages that was like a flap that's tucked in over that.
Oh, geez.
So that could just go on in a couple of minutes. So most of the days where he's covered in bandages, whether they're aged or whether they're brand new, we could do his makeup super quick. And then the bandage hood could come off when he wasn't shooting.
Oh, that's so smart.
And then when we got to the hoods that had more decay around the mouth, then we added a section that was literally just his upper and lower teeth and chin, that we would just glue that on. And those were pre-painted, and they were rigid acrylic.
Oh, cool.
So we painted his teeth black.
Yeah.
And then we painted his lips black, and then we glued those upper and lower sections of the skull down over that. And then we would just have him like rinse with like black mouth food coloring, so that everything went dark inside the fake teeth. And we just try to keep it so that his time could be focused on acting instead of having to tolerate
a lot of makeup.
Yeah.
How, if he has no lips, how is he like talking like like?
Oh, that was our argument as well. You can't
actually talk about like purple platypus.
Well,
like,
just to say the word.
Say that.
Yeah. Just to say any of that, it doesn't. It's not an option.
But he is.
It's one of those things and there was also debate. Well, do we make his voice sound like his throat was really burned, or do we give him a bit of a speech impediment? And a lot of that stuff was discussed, and it was just decided that for the sake of storytelling, he should have a strong voice and be articulate.
It's interesting because I feel like sometimes he chose to have a bit of a rasp, like when he's first talking to Julie, especially when they sit down and they're talking together, he kind of has like a rasp voice. But then it's funny because it's like Frances McDormand isn't like, hey, why is your voice weird now, my love?
Yeah, he's got that raspy thing, and then there's times where he's trying to sound like he used to sound. So he tries to be very articulate and smoother. And then there's times where he's just pissed
off
the people he's dealing with, and he has no like sort of barometer.
So it goes out the window.
No way to put a lid on his emotions. So it just gets super intense.
Oh, I see.
Because he can't feel pain, and he can't feel a lot of that stuff.
Right. That makes sense now.
So he has the opportunity to be more dramatic. So for Liam, he gets to play a lot of different characters, and sometimes it's one character inside another character's look.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I would think it would have been really interesting for him. I mean, there's so many emotions for him to have had to go through. And this is one of his first films, and he has to do an American accent, wear contact lenses. And
he has contact lenses?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Once he goes into like the burn mode, the idea was his eyes were still going to stay pure because they didn't want to do a burn look. They wanted him to have intensity, but the colors on his face went so extreme. It's like we need to pump up the blue in his eyes, so that they didn't look dull. They didn't look gray.
They didn't get lost.
Because once everything got brighter with all the reds and blacks, and his skin goes so pale, his eyes went from sort of blue to gray just because of the way we framed them.
So he had blue contact lenses.
So we put in blue lenses to to pump up that color.
See, those are things you don't usually think about.
And then we put eyeliner on that was purple around the burned eye versus the real eye, so that there was a little bit of a difference. And then we gradated that based on what look he was in as well. Liam had a lot of great ideas too about like fine arts pieces and stuff, which was really fun to...
That's cool.
Yeah, he brought so much to the game. So then when he goes back to the graveyard and meets Julie at his gravesite, he's wearing the reconstructed version of his face, but it has that limited time life on it, and he runs out of time and it starts to bubble. So that's a gelatin prosthetic that had channels in it that we had tiny little tubes in. They went to these open cavities in the prosthetic, and through those tubes we had little squeeze bulbs, and we could squeeze air so that, because it's gelatin, those things could expand, and then they would also suck back in. And when you took the pressure off of it, it would suck in and create a negative space just because of the vacuum.
Whoa.
So we got extra out of it without even trying.
It's gelatin.
And then with his makeup, when he was in the,
in his
the reconstituted fake thing, we tried to paint him up as a mannequin and paint hard hairline, and then we did veneers on his gums to give his teeth sort of that perfect like tooth line.
Oh my goodness. Yeah,
and
because...
then we would whiten his teeth up a little bit, because it's him trying to be who he was.
Oh, that makes so much sense, because I was watching it. I was like, his skin looks different.
Yeah.
And that's obviously, you got it's
supposed to be synthetic. But it made it harder for us to blend all the gelatin stuff in.
When his face starts to do that.
Yeah, because it just wants to, the edges want to show, because you don't have any modeling of skin color to hide it behind.
Interesting. We'll get to that part. But before his skin starts to bubble when his time's running out, he has to leave. All these fingers in a cigar box.
Yeah.
That's
That was
a lot
just
of fingers.
people on the crew, and we just painted them up.
Oh my gosh, did you keep any fingers?
We used to have the whole box of fingers. I couldn't tell you what happened to it.
How do you lose a box of fake fingers?
I don't know.
You're like, oh gosh, where did that cigar box of fake fingers go? I don't know.
It wasn't the cigar box from the movie, because that was
a prop. Or set deck.
Yeah, but we kept all the stuff that we had made, and we had all those fingers all stitched up hanging around. And then when the two Larry Drakes show up together, it's a lot of split screen. And like the hand that he holds the flame under,
yeah,
it's just rigid resin, because there were it's like, what's gonna not catch on fire? And that was pretty much the only thing at the time, because there was no silicone. We're just rotating it. We couldn't get the ring on it because it was rigid, so we cut the ring in half and glued the ring just on the
hilarious.
Front of the hand.
It looks
but
good.
because it's the mannequin version of the guy, the skin tone's very flat. It's supposed to look fake. And I also painted over the fingernails with this base color of their skin, so that when they were in mannequin mode, whether it was Liam or anybody else, there was a bit of an artificiality to the hands as well. And then we'd make people shave their hands.
Oh, wow. There's a lot of layers to this I just hadn't realized before.
And Larry Drake was awesome as a villain. He had come off a TV show called LA Law, where he played a mentally handicapped person, and came into our shop. Like, I wonder how this guy's going to be as a villain. And he was amazing. It's like John Lithgow, where he can do anything like so successfully, you assume it's typecasting.
I see.
Because they're so genuine in what they're doing.
Yeah, and he also plays like a great, when he's Liam pretending to be him.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
He brought a lot to it. And then when he escapes from the confrontation with the other Larry Drake.
Oh, yeah.
And runs down the alley, he ditches his mask because it's going to start to come apart. We did a likeness makeup on another guy to look like Larry Drake so that they could fight and touch each other. And then we did a bladder makeup on Larry Drake so that it's coming apart while he's running. And they put a smoke rig in his jacket. It was just a tube that ran up to his hand, and he kept his hand by his head, so it looked like his head was smoking.
Oh, that's such a great idea.
And then they can't find him when they go into the alley, but they see this bubbling mask. And basically it's the same thing we did for the faces. We just did it with a prop, and the prop mask was gelatin. We just had to sculpt it to look folded up and thrown on the ground. And then we hit it with some heat guns from the top. So the top structure would start to break up. And then we also had the bladders inside of it.
That's so cool. I didn't realize it was gelatin. If you had to choose as a makeup artist, like when you're doing something like bladders, would you prefer silicone or would you prefer gelatin?
I prefer silicone now, I think, because it would stretch and not break. Because once you went too far, like we were very cautious filming, and we would shoot it like the safe version where we wouldn't push the bubbling too far. Because if we popped one, it was hours to redo the whole makeup.
Oh, God.
So we'd get something, and then we would go for it. And usually everything would warm up by then to the point where it would stretch a little bit more than we would have expected it to. So we could get some really extreme stuff.
Do you find much people working in gelatin anymore?
No, it's so hard to work with, and it starts to break down.
But it's such a cool look.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of silicone now, except it has like 0 shelf life, and it starts to stretch and break down. It's very fragile to work with, but if you could do it right, it's great. We use it for like the scene in the amusement park. This one, we did a gelatin hand of the guy who pokes him.
Oh, right. So
and bends it. And there's literally no armature in it. It's soft. And it was really up to Liam to like grab it and try and do a hard turn.
Oh, so he's just manhandling the shit out of that finger.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And we made 2 of them because it's like...
You always need a second.
It's like get one that's safe and then go for it. But if you go too far, it's just going to tear. So
I see.
Here's an extra.
Speaking of the circus scene... We're at the fair. My dad has a cameo in this movie.
Yes, I do.
What age are you?
I have 2 cameos, actually.
What?
I'm in this circus scene as the sideshow freak, the lizard man
boy
that Liam empathizes with. I'm also in the beginning in the hospital. I'm a nurse in the burn ward.
What?
And I trimmed his power netting off of his bandages when he's in the water tank, the full body water tank.
I'm sorry. What? We have to revisit that real fast. I just need to see that.
Oh, that's me.
Oh my God.
With the gurney. And then I'm supposed to be lifting him up to get him onto the gurney.
Dad, you're in this movie. Oh my God.
You'd never know.
After Liam Neeson's character explodes, we go to the hospital scene. And basically, my dad has now told me that this scene is full of cameos. I did not realize at first.
That's John Landis.
John Landis has a cameo?
Mm-hmm. And that's Jenny Agutter as the nurse. And she was in American Wolf in London.
And isn't she in Child's Play too?
Yeah.
Oh my God, full circle. I was watching this and I was like, I know this woman from something. I made an entire documentary on Child's Play. Of course, I should know her face.
So John Landis directed her in...
American
Werewolf. Then the 2 of them acted in this side by side.
That's so
And then
cool.
one of the other doctors is Sam's brother Ivan, who Sam and Ivan wrote the script for this together.
Oh, I was wondering because when I was watching
There's Ivan.
This, I literally thought Ivan was Sam, and then at one point he takes his mask down and I was like, oh, that's not Sam Raimi. Oh my gosh, this movie is just full of cameos.
And then we had a dummy version to rotate on the table, but then the table was actually built strong enough that Liam could get strapped into it as well.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Okay, we got to go back to the circus now. So now we're at the circus scene, and my dad is the lizard boy. Why are you a lizard boy? What is the choice behind that?
That's Sam. That's the way it was written. It was the lizard boy in the carnival.
That's so
And
funny.
then we went a little too green and a little too lizardy for Sam, but it was a little too late. And I think my hair on that, it's the Reverend's wig from The Blob.
That's hilarious.
Is the front of it, because it was just a front. The prosthetic just went
into your hairline
halfway back, and then the wig covered the blend.
That's amazing.
So that it could look like his hair was thinning in the front.
Your hair was thinning in the front.
Yeah.
So how does one get into character as a lizard boy? Did you warm up? Did you eat some flies? What's the deal?
Once the contact lenses went in and the teeth went in and everything was on, I was like, I don't know why I did this. And I was so happy when they said, all right, that's a wrap on Lizard Boy. And then I literally started peeling my face off while I was standing on the podium there. And I got it like about halfway off, and Liam said, would you be okay with staying there for eyeline and giving me something to relate to. I was like, oh my God, mentally I've already moved on from this, and now I have to like wrap my head around
being in this island,
pushing it back on and trying
damn.
to be the character. And I did it for him, obviously.
Yeah.
But it just made the experience that much worse because I had already mentally
checked out.
Yeah, decided that I was so happy to finally be out of the thing. We were outdoors, it was in the sun, and it was just like we were in a parking lot and there was a lot of dust.
And also that's a full face.
And I'd never really worn full
prosthetics.
Contact lenses like that before, and with all the dust in the air, it was just like,
oh God, that's
this is just misery. So I took the lenses out, and then
You took them out yourself?
Yeah.
It's the 90s. Nowadays, there's what's called a lens technician, and you're not allowed to touch your contact lenses yourself.
I think I also put the lenses in myself.
Oh, my goodness.
I think they were my lenses. I think this was one of
goodness.
those, we don't have any money for a lizard boy. What can we do?
I see. And did that save them money? Did you do your own makeup?
Chet and I did the makeup and the lenses and the teeth and the hair. We had makeups to do. We were already there. We had makeups to do on Liam for when he gets mad and his forehead pulses. We had tried to do a forehead prosthetic with bladders in it that would be veins, but through even the thinnest foam latex, it just spreads out so much the detail doesn't read.
So you were already there having to do makeup.
We were already there.
It was a full day.
Yeah.
This was all on the same day. You had to do your own shit and then do Liam's
Yeah,
bladders.
and then we also had the guy's finger break, which was just an easy prop, but
still.
Yeah, just a lot of stuff to do. But it was fun.
That's cool. I like that you're in this.
Yeah.
And then it's the most iconic line ever that my parents have quoted since I was very young, and I didn't understand what it was until I watched this movie where he wins the elephant for her after he's pissed off, and he shoves it in her and he says, "Take the fucking elephant."
Yeah, that's pretty great.
Take it now. Take it. Take the fucking elephant.
The rest of the movie is pretty much still Liam in his looks, but now the bandages are off and he's bald.
Yeah, you see his full head for what it is. We also did a dummy of the guy that he drops.
Oh, out the window?
Yeah. And then there's a scene where there's masks of different characters that are layered on top of people. And we got to do likeness masks of Dan Bell, who was Smiley. And that gets peeled off and reveals this guy with tape over his mouth.
Oh, yeah, this scene's crazy.
There's a lot of really great stuff that Sam has where you don't know who's who. Masks are being pulled off. And then Dan Bell, who played Smiley here, the long-haired
blonde guy.
Yeah, he was one of those guys that's kind of up for anything. He gets assaulted by himself, and then when the person lands, you see there's a neck flap. And we did a mask of him. That reveals Liam, and then we did a neck flap on Liam of another mask so that could be pulled up. And
it's another guy.
And when Liam's trying to talk, you see his teeth are silver.
For duct tape.
Because it's duct tape, actually, on the final guy, who's the third layer in.
Oh, my God. That's so cool.
So it was really fun to come up with things that would tie each layer to overlap a little bit and make it interesting for the audience.
Yeah, you can follow it.
Yeah, and all the actors were so patient. So, I mean, just so many great ideas like that were all just Sam.
Did Liam Neeson just have just put some duct tape in his mouth for that?
Yeah, we put something down first so that the duct tape wouldn't have the shapes of his teeth. And then we did duct tape over that. And then when it was the Liam mask over the other guy, we just put the real tape on his lips.
That's so cool.
And we're scaling the heads bigger, obviously, but Sam's adjusting in the camera so that everything's still lining up because you get a bigger Liam head over.
Yeah. What do you mean adjusting? Like it was a certain lens or something?
Well, just a camera frame, so it's filling the same amount of space in the camera. So there's never anything jarring where the head sizes
How
shift.
He's so good.
So he's just really aware of the framing the whole time.
He's so good.
And Bill Pope, the DP, was amazing with lighting, and he would help us so often. And then Dan Bell here gets to play himself and the evil version of himself. And then he wears some skeleton gloves. And then there's some fake arms that punch him as well that have the skinnier wrists. So there's a lot of mixing and matching of pieces. But to Sam's credit, he storyboards everything.
Yeah, you have to.
So we know what we need for each shot. So we literally just sort of show up on set with boxes of stuff right off camera, ready to go.
Dan Bell, I have now met in my lifetime because his son Finn is a musician, and I was in a music video of Finn's. But Dan is really funny, really nice, and I had no idea that he was the guy that was in Darkman. So it was just so funny when I had. My dad had told me that, because I wouldn't have imagined, but
yeah,
it's
he looks a little different.
Guy. Yeah, it looks a little different. His hair is a little shorter, but still really cool.
We're all a little grayer. This one, Liam didn't really want to go up on the helicopter, and they're like, "Oh, we'll keep you like 4 or 5 feet off the ground," and then all of a sudden he was up above the roof.
What?
And he just had to go with it.
But he's harnessed in, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But he was like in it for the long haul.
Wow. What a trooper.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the whole place goes up.
Wow.
And then that's miniature being exploded.
Right there?
Yeah, that was just a beautiful match to the real location.
That's insanely good.
Yeah,
of a
it
miniature.
was stunning.
Is this the same people who did miniatures like on Star Wars too?
I'm not sure. I want to say it's the Skotek brothers.
Okay.
And Forward Productions. And they did all of the stuff for James Cameron. And, I mean, they're just so talented.
Those guys are nuts.
And yeah.
And then this is just mainly a stunt guy until it's close-ups of Liam Neeson, correct? When he's hanging and doing all the helicopter stuff. Yeah,
and that was a bridge downtown.
So then it becomes nighttime.
And we are in a building under construction. And it was the Ronald Reagan Library downtown.
Ronald Reagan has a library.
And then there was a set that was built up off the floor in a warehouse.
For when they're all having the conversations?
Yeah, for a lot of it. There were some Introvision models that were made that were grafted to the scene as well. So there's really a mix of 3 different environments. And then Liam's got a mask to peel off. But other than that, he's pretty much in the full makeup the whole time.
So is he in a bald cap?
He's wearing a vacuform cap that represents his skull, and then there are foam prosthetics
on top of that
fit over that for the skin.
Rad.
So like if he moved his head, there was never any flex to his skull, but the skin could like compress at the base of his skull or whatever.
How long did this final look take in the makeup chair? 4 hours?
That was about 3.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I think it looks really great. Although the first time I watched Darkman with my dad, when we got to this scene, you were like, when he's going, she's about to fall from the barbed wire or from the like rebar, and he's like, Julie, and you're like, oh I hate that, because the way his mouth moves.
It just goes back to that whole thing where if you have no lips, that's one issue. But if you're saying Julie, you're pulling your face in a way where these flat plates of acrylic glued to your skin are moving in a way that bone won't move. So we actually had him saying Nana instead of Julie.
Right. So he was like, na.
So that your lips, so he was saying something where your lips don't move, but he's still doing 2 syllables.
I see. And then that's just dubbed.
And then they just, So it ended up working great.
Yeah.
But when we were filming it, I hated that scene because we were kind of figuring it out on the fly. And then Sam likes to do these moving shots where the camera follows
them while they're swinging,
or rivets or whatever, or it's the POV of a rivet. He does a lot of interesting shots. So like, you're tracking with it and then it's POV.
That's so interesting.
And then when it hits his hand, we actually like did it in reverse and had it glued to his hand.
Oh, and then had it pop out.
And then pulled it away and had the camera pull away from it.
Oh, cool.
There's just such an interesting mix of stuff working with Sam. It's always fun. Then when he pulls his hand off of it, he just covers it with his fingers. And there was a rivet head already on the rivet behind his hand with blood on it. So he just closes on one and then reveals the other.
That's great.
It's like old school magic trick kind of stuff.
You're a magician.
That's where I started, so
yeah,
stuff like that fit. But Bill Pope's lighting in all this is so beautiful, and you actually catch like the hairs growing back on the top of his head, and his eyebrows growing back in. A lot of the stuff that we slaved over in regards to detail that you don't notice, here you actually get to see it, and it's really nice that he takes off Larry Drake's clothing, and underneath it he's got his whole jacket and everything, and he gets to be the dynamic Darkman character. It's amazing. And then in the very end, when, he's slipping off into the crowd, we got to do a makeup on Bruce Campbell and make Bruce Campbell the disguised version of, Liam Neeson's next look to blend into humanity and disappear into the crowd.
Did that happen because you originally pictured Bruce Campbell as that, or just because Sam Raimi was like, I love Bruce Campbell and here's the cameo?
I think it was, here's a good cameo and we can put some prosthetics on Bruce to change him up a little bit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because he does look a little bit different.
Yeah, so he added some cheeks and chin and stuff like that, and it's a nice way to go out.
The ending always makes me cry when she's looking for him and she can't find him and she doesn't know who it could be.
Yeah, and she's so good. I mean, she's literally the emotional anchor in it because he doesn't have a lot to be emotive with other than body language and his eyes.
Correct.
But he pulls it off so well, like that whole scene where they're going down in the elevator.
Yeah.
It's just very genuine between them, and you can tell.
Yeah.
And it's really nice. And then, and then he's gone. So it's a nice way to end it. And then I know they did a couple sequels and
They did?
And yeah.
Oops, I didn't know that. They did? What are they called? Darkman 2?
Yeah.
What?
And then
What?
And I think the guy from The Mummy,
The bald guy?
mm-hmm,
That's so funny.
is Darkman.
Did you do the makeup?
I think
for it?
Larry Drake was in one of those. No, Liam and I made a deal. We were like, if one of us wasn't asked to be part of it, the other one wouldn't be part of it either.
That's cute.
So it's like, let's keep some integrity to the character and make sure that if you're there,
I'm there,
and vice versa, so that it's true to its origin.
That's cool.
But at the same time, we used to joke that, okay, a burned scientist is a career ender. I'll be putting the Darkman makeup on you and you'll be cutting the tape to open a supermarket somewhere as Darkman when you're like 60 years old.
That's so funny.
And it's like, look at him now with everything that he's done and the different franchises.
Oh my gosh,
like
yeah.
Taken. And he's just created literally his own genre. So it's really cool to see.
And you got to catch him before all of that, which is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, in the very beginning, it was one of his first films, and for me, it was one of my first films as a big makeup effects guy doing makeup I'd never done before. So we pretty much like supported each other and tried to make everything the best that it could be the whole time.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was a great experience, and then just working with Sam and Bill Pope and the whole team, and then Francis. I mean, there was just so much integrity and talent. It was very inspiring and made you want to do your best and rise to the occasion and not care that you were in hour 20
or a lizard boy
in the dirt. Yeah, it was a great experience.
That's really cool.
One of my favorites for sure.
Oh, yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
My dad and I went to Son of Monsterpalooza last year, and Sam Raimi was doing like meet and greet, and Ted also had they both had a table, but we went and like paid for a picture with Sam Raimi, and it was so funny because
I'm like, I'm never gonna get 5 minutes with him unless we do this, and then we did it. You get like 20 seconds.
Yeah,
it's just like they have it set up so they barrel you through, and then Sam realized who I was as he was shaking my hand, and then we ended up talking. We stopped everything.
We stopped the line for like a good 5 minutes. They were kind of mad at us.
And then it was towards the end though, so we got a good 15 minutes to catch up afterwards, and then got to go talk to Ted for a while in the signing room that he was in.
Ted was really nice,
and hadn't seen either of them since I think Spider-Man. So
which is crazy. Wait, Spider-Man?
Alterian had done the prototyping for the costume for Spider-Man. So last time I saw Sam was the screen test with him and Richard Edlund and myself testing different suit ideas. I had been hired by Sony and James Atchison to do some concept prototyping.
So you almost did the suit for Spider-Man?
Well, we did all the prototyping and figured it out, and then they said, okay, thanks, that's all we're hiring you for. We're going to move on with another team that has an Academy Award.
Oh, those bitches.
But that happens all the time.
I know.
And it's marketing, and it's like you understand that going in, and like my contract said,
it was just for that.
Just to figure out everything, and had an end date and had a total dollar amount. And it's like, that's what I signed up for. But I got to go on stage for the filming of the tests of the bodysuit. And then I saw Sam, and then I hadn't seen Richard Edlund in like decades either. So it was really nice to like catch up with people.
That's cool.
Yeah, so then to be able to see him again last year, and it's always nice catching up with people like that who are still the same person and still true to who they are
Before film success or fame.
And it's like
whatever.
that hasn't impacted them. They're still the creative little dynamo that they always were, and they're also still as humble and gracious.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
It's cool. I recently met Sam's daughter, Emma, and she's more than just Sam's daughter. She's an actress, and she's getting into producing and directing. She's very cool. But I was ghost hunting with my friend Kelsey Davies and Emma, and she's just like also just the sweetest, funniest person ever. So
that's great.
It runs in the family.
Well, that's when you know the parents are grounded too.
Yeah.
So that's nice to hear.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool. Do you have like any piece of advice for people like from this movie that you were taught in the course of making it or anything like that?
If I had to offer any advice to anybody based on this experience, it would be if somebody asked you to do something and you're not sure how to do it, say you'll do it and then figure it out, and trust in yourself and have confidence that you will figure it out, and reach out to other people to help you, because you can't do it all yourself.
You can't.
And then to be in an experience where you're able to surround yourself with people that are talented in other departments is only inspiring. And it also, it inspires you to bring your A game, and you realize how much of a collaborative experience filmmaking is, and how you can do a great makeup, but if it's not lit well, it doesn't matter. And if it's not on an actor that's making it real, it doesn't matter what you did. And you realize that everybody is part of the success of the character of the story. And I think that's the most important takeaway.
Wow, that's beautiful, Dad.
It's like filmmaking is collaborative and compromise.
Yeah.
Always. But sometimes that compromise creates
beautiful
things you wouldn't
work.
expect. Yeah.
Well, that's really cool. We're going to get into the 90s movies, and I think next might be The Craft or Addams Family. I don't remember which one came first.
I don't remember either.
He doesn't even remember, and he was there. But thank you guys for tuning in.
Yeah.
Our podcast is mainly going to be once a month because my dad is busy, but also I am gearing up to shoot my first feature film this summer. So I'll have a lot on my plate. But as we can try to get more episodes in a month, we will. Or maybe there's shorter versions of things or just sound bites that I can share that were originally cut from episodes or something, so that there's more for you guys to look forward to. But right now it's a once a month podcast with Fangoria, and we hope to keep sharing information and cool stories.
Yep.
And we'll see you next month.
Thanks for watching and listening.
Thanks for listening and watching. See ya later, alligator.
Bye.